can't think about this democracy. I can't think about this democracy. I can't think about this democracy. I can't think about this democracy. Democracy, crazy demo. Demonstration of praise, crazy demonstration. Feel not be praised. Why for Africa? As time we go, things just stay bad more and more. Democracy, crazy demo, demonstration of praise, crazy demonstration, democracy, crazy demo, democracy, crazy demo. I can't think about this democracy. 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 Crazy demo, demonstration of praise, crazy demonstration. The feeling of the praise. Why for Africa? As time we go, things just stay bad more and more. Democracy, crazy demo, demonstration of praise, crazy demonstration, democracy, crazy demo, democracy. I can't think about this 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 democracy. Democracy, crazy demo, demonstration of praise, crazy demonstration. Feel not be praised. Why for Africa? As time we go, things just stay bad more and more. Democracy, crazy demo, demonstration of praise, crazy demonstration, democracy, crazy demo, democracy, crazy demo. I can't think about this democracy. 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 Democracy, crazy demo, demonstration of praise, crazy demonstration. The feeling of the praise. Why for Africa? As time we go, things just stay bad more and more. Democracy, crazy demo, demonstration of praise, crazy demonstration, democracy, crazy demo, democracy.
Tendai Mwadi, be thankful unto the Mother, Father, creative life force of the universe, Kudzai, Mudzimu Mukuro. We give praises unto our great ancestors because our great ancestors are worthy to be praised. And we declare Abibi Tumi, Abibi Fahodie, African power and African liberation for all African people on the face of Mother Earth. Greetings and welcome, brothers and sisters, to this inaugural episode, the very first episode. This is history in the making. Kings and queens, brothers and sisters, we appreciate you for being here with us today as we bring to you our very first episode of Ghana, Democracy Under Fire. Democracy under fire. We have democracy under fire today and forevermore, brothers and sisters. Yes, indeed. In the lead up to the election, the general election in Ghana, which is set to take place on the 7th of December. We will be breaking down the ballistics of the political economy of the nation of Ghana, as ably joined by our special regular guest and co-host and analyst, the one and only Gbontwi Anyetei. Greetings, Gbontwi. Hey, Gbontwi has frozen. In this time, this is the inopportune moment to freeze. Okay, brothers and sisters, stay tuned. We're going to get Gbontwi Anyetei back very, very shortly. So do stay tuned, all right? But we're there. And we are here with you live, yeah? So as has been said, the election in Ghana is set to take place on the 7th of December. And so what we thought would be good as a means of political education for our people, our community worldwide, is to engage in a show that provides regular contemporary, as in modern day, and historical analysis on the dynamics of the Ghana economy, its political system, the history, as it relates to various different areas of people activity, highlighting various different events, institutions, people of note, and their policies as they have affected Ghana throughout the years, and then come for you and bring you the information and analysis for us to understand and get a greater appreciation for how this issue of electoral politics operates within the African continent in particular, and throughout the Black world in general. And so our hot ones and ones are ready to be taking on this ride. We will be with you every fourth Tuesday or Ojima Day of the month. Yeah, so every fourth Ojima Day of the month. So this is your regular slot, 8 p.m. every fourth Ojima Day, Tuesday of the month. You'll be joining us for Democracy Under Fire, Ghana, Democracy Under Fire. And maybe it's possible, man. Maybe it's possible that in the future we will replicate this format in relation to other nations, yes, throughout the Black world. Like, for example, I know that Jamaica yesterday had its local government elections and will have its its general election, electing a new prime minister possibly in November of this year. And so we, that's another one. The Nigeria election was hot, recently as well. So there's always these elections taking place, and so they give us an opportunity to kind of narrow down and put the political system under a microscope and go in it, as we might say, brothers and sisters. So we'll get there. But for now, this series will be joining you throughout the year 2024 and a bit of 2025 as well, as we analyze the results of the election in December and what it means. And so we're just awaiting. We've got a slight technical hitch going on at the moment. We're just waiting for our co-host to return to us. And I say it goes sometimes, family, when you're dealing with the motherland, you know what I mean? Sometimes things kick out, but he was with us, for a while before we went live, so we know that everything's working. And as and where things are not working, we'll let you know, and come again, brothers and sisters. So if you're just joining us, welcome to our very first episode of Ghana Democracy Under Fire. Our special guest co-host and analyst has just dropped off. His network seems to have dropped off, so we're just awaiting his return. But for now, let me big up those who are with us in the chat. Bigging up Set Imhotep over there in the nation of Trinidad. James O is in the building. Melamandea in I forget which part of the state you there, but by way of Jamaica. So we appreciate love all of you joining us. Special shout out to everybody when it come through last week for our analysis of Bob Marley One Love. Getting a lot of beautiful feedback about that analysis. And so we give thanks. But no, it's enough on the vex, no, it's enough on the vex, but I just say go, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, we give thanks to all those who came through and assisted us in going through the dynamics of that film. There were many issues, as I'm sure you can appreciate, that we're never going in as much detail, or you know, like there were so many other points that we could have raised. And me, I listen back to the show, and me, I wonder where, yeah, we should have raised this and we should have gone at that little more, and we raised the point but didn't necessarily delve into it, you know what I'm saying, as a site go. But shouting out to Sister Ankobia, our guest who joined us for that analysis, for her contributions. And we know, say, there are calls to bring Sister Ankobia back. We will dutifully be doing that at some point in the not too distant future, brothers and sisters. Gbontwi Anyetei is back with us, so let us get into this. I'm going to bring you through now, Gbontwi. Are you with us, Gbontwi?
I am back. Sorry, my technology won't let me be great, but
yes, that's how it goes, brother. My brother, go ahead.
As usual, we are resisting. I've got my phone on standby, so if my laptop plays up again, I'll switch to my phone in the meantime.
100%. And I'm also pleased to announce to you, brothers and sisters, that we will be sharing this particular show as a podcast live on your digital streaming platforms, your DSPs, yeah? So your Spotify and your Apple, and me as a Google have one too. So we're going to share it live on your DSPs so that you can listen, you know what I'm saying, just the audio version of it, you know, to take it in while you're traveling and doing other things and all them things there. You know what I'm saying? If our stunningly good looks are too much for you to observe on a regular basis, you know what I'm saying? All right, brothers and sisters, let's get into this situation now. Gbontwi, so first and foremost, Gbontwi, like, let's introduce the entire series, yeah. And I've already explained what we're going to be doing in a snapshot, but from your perspective, let's give our audience a snapshot of what we're going to be doing for the entire series right here.
Yeah. First of all, big up for the spreading the podcast onto the other audio platforms, and we haven't discussed that in great detail, but it's really important. I've got a very special simpatico for that, because I do it myself. Obviously, as you're seeing, technology and handling all of that is not easy. So listening to on audio with the lower bandwidth has made consuming a lot of this content easier through the audio route. So I'm going to try and remember, as we're having our conversations and we're using some visual aids, to try and describe it for those who will be listening along with us as they're driving, doing daily errands and stuff like that. Okay, so then to answer your question, for me, democracy, that word in the title really sums it up. It's really sad for me that democracy has its critics in the way it does, especially on the continent, because it's not healthy / functional for Africans to wish that they have less power over their destinies and political fortunes. But that's what several decades of neoliberalism has done. And most importantly, centering the conversation on democracy around Western style parliamentary systems, which barely work for those who have created it for their populations, and certainly do not work at all. So people think, okay, Western style parliamentary systems, two-party states, maybe three parties, they're not working, they all represent the same interest. That means democracy must be bad. Instead of the right analysis, which is actually that, first of all, this Western style parliamentary system, if it does count as democracy, barely does. But if it does, it's certainly not the only kind. And then if we want to really get historical, which I'm prone to do, you're going to hear me do that a lot, ladies and gentlemen. Historically, there have been many systems on the continent that, if we are really analyzing what democracy means, and we can pull up, and we will pull up, all forms of definitions of democracy. We will find systems that have existed on our continent, wherever you're from, West Africa, East Africa, South Africa, even the North, which is its own conversation that that definitely fits in with democracy, traditional rulerships, all these sort of things.
Oh, it looks like we have lost Anyetei again. Are you with us? Okay, brothers and sisters, we got a technical there again, so we're gonna persevere. We are going to persevere, brothers and sisters. Yeah, so do stay tuned. We're gonna get Gbontwi back very shortly. All right, but he was just gonna give you an overview of where we're gonna be going with this series from his own perspective. Before we get into the specifics of this episode, I should let you know is entitled the decoding of Ghana's political theater. The decoding of Ghana's political theater. Yes, we must decode the political theater. So we're going to be getting into a bit of an historical analysis, and then looking at the how Ghana operates, yeah, in various different areas of people activity. So it's an introductory episode for you to understand what's going to come. And we'll also break down to you the actual players, yes, within the political system at the moment, who is coming against who, you know what I'm saying, as far as the actual election is concerned. And then next, some analysis of media as well. And our next episode is going to go into even greater detail on a specific area. All right, so do stay tuned for all dynamics. Greetings and welcome to those who are just joining us. Greetings to Everything is Everything, bringing the Anansi energy as always. Kweku Anansi in the building. Yes indeed, me not go nowhere, you know, without Kweku Anansi. It's me not go nowhere in this world without Kweku Anansi. Yeah, because that we grew up on. You know, see it. All right. Okay, Gbontwi Anyetei is back with us. So we're gonna get a complete answer to this question. All right, Gbontwi Anyetei. Oh, let me know when you're ready, Gbontwi. Because you're moving around at the moment. All right. We're getting there, brothers and sisters. We are getting there. We shall persevere. We will survive, as the song says. All right, brothers and sisters. And so where was I up to? Yeah. The different players, yeah, within the field of the election. So let me do that, yeah, whilst we are waiting for Gbontwi Anyetei. So the current president of Ghana, as many of you will know, is Nana Akufo-Addo, yeah. Nana Akufo-Addo, who is the current president, and his party is the New Patriotic Party, also known as the MPP. And then we have John Mahama, who is a former president of Ghana, and his party is the National Democratic Congress, which is also known as the NDC. Now, Akufo-Addo has already served, well, is finalizing his second term now. And so his successor, he would hope, would be Mamadou Bawumia, yes, of the New Patriotic Party, the MPP. Yeah, so those are the players that are in the game at the moment as far as the presidential election is concerned. And I'm going to pause my introductory analysis to hand back over to Gbontwi for his complete answer to the question about where we're going with this. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, in this episode, particular context setting around we here in Ghana and our political situation, I'm really looking forward to, as you were just getting into, their sort of conversations around the specific political parties. That one will bring in some hard hitters that can bring in some of the histories around it. I've been back living in Ghana for about 10 years, which makes me somewhat of an authority, but trust me, I'll be learning as much as everyone when it comes to some of the histories of both the parties. But for today, to understand the theater as opposed to the actors. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to but carry on with your breakdown. That's important too as part of the context setting.
100%. Yeah. So it's just about understanding the different political parties and their figureheads as it stands at the moment. Yes, as I said, you've got the New Patriotic Party, which is the NPP, and then the National Democratic Congress, which is the NDC, which are the two major political parties in the nation of Ghana. And so those who are up for election for this year are Maha Mudu, Bawumia and John Mahama. Yes, these are the two individuals that are up for election at the moment. We're going to get into the depth of our guiding taxonomy in a second, Gbontwi, but just give our listeners an idea of the general political leanings of these two parties as it stands before we get in, just as an introduction.
Yeah, in general terms, and how I came to understand it, the NPP, as you mentioned, who's currently led by Akufo-Addo, but as you said, his second term is ending, is considered to be what in the West would be Republican, and Britain would be Conservative, and then the NDC would be considered left. That's in terms of Britain, again, Labour. In terms of the US, the Democrats. As is also the case with those four parties in the West. Most people living under their regimes will tell you is that there's very little difference, and that's definitely the case here in Ghana too. They're all riding the middle, populist where it makes sense to be populist. And yeah, just not really having any sort of power behind any convictions that they claim to have. But as far as the language that they use, so the current government, as I said, Conservative/Republican, there's a lot of emphasis about investment, foreign investment at that, and then with the NDC, who are most likely to be incoming, there's a lot of language around sort of socialists. They make way too many references to Nkrumahism. For my particular Nkrumahist biases and alliance to be comfortable with. But yeah, those are the general on appearance, on sight kind of appearance. That's the wardrobe that they wear, to continue the theatre analogy. Yeah.
Okay, all right, brothers and sisters, so stay tuned. Now, some of you might be quite surprised, to hear that Nana Akufo-Addo of the NPP stands on the right Republican conservative side of Ghana's political spectrum, because Nana Akufo-Addo has got a bit of a reputation in recent years as some kind of a Pan-Africanist, Well, do stay tuned in future episodes. We will be getting into that dynamic in more depth, all right? And, possibly shattering that illusion. It looks like we have lost Gbontwi Anyetei again. Brothers and sisters, we will persevere. All right, this is all a part of the thing. Okay, Gbontwi's back. 1 second, we're gonna bring back again. All right, you're back with us. Okay, you froze for a second there, Gbontwi. Okay, so I'm gonna say to brothers and sisters, please use the chat to ask questions and make comments. If you would like your comment to be read out, please at gotkushTV, at gotkushTV, and we will read your comment or question. At least one of you has done that already, so we'll get to you in a second, quite shortly. So do stay tuned, and we'll make sure we'll do that. But for everybody else, please at gotkushTV if you would like your comment and question read out. And as Gbontwi Anyetei has said, this will be a learning experience for us all. All right. At some point we're gonna, introduce you to the writing of Gbontwi Anyetei as well, because he is an author, a published author of 3 novels, in fact, and that's not to mention any of the other writing that he's done for various different publications. Okay, so do stay tuned. We'll let you know where to get Gbontwi's books so you can check them out. And his 3rd one in particular would be of interest to many of you who find this particular podcast of interest. Yeah, so do stay tuned. We'll get into that before the end of the show. All right, Gbontwi, I'm going to bring you back. Okay. So as it stands, we are going to be using a template, to guide us through this particular show, okay, and this particular episode. So we're going to bring that for you soon. Gbontwi, you back with us?
Yeah. I'm here. Hope you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. We can hear you good. All right, cool. All right, so let me see now. So let's get into the actual main topic then. Should I bring up this the taxonomy now?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, cool. So brothers and sisters, we're going to bring up a little visual aid, just to guide us through the dynamics of this particular episode and the analysis that Brother Gbontwi is going to bring for us. Okay, so as you can see here, we have the areas of people activity as defined by Baba Neely Fuller and popularized by Nana Francis Cress Rosin. And so many of you will be aware of this: education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, war, economics. And so, or I should say, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. So this is the foundation. As you can see, global system of white supremacy is in the center, and it is said to mean that all of these areas of people activity are informed by the goal and the intentionality of the global system of white supremacy, which is at the center of it and surrounds all areas of people activity. And so as the diagram, the graph here says, areas of people activity in the global system of white supremacy domination that reflect and carry forth white supremacy domination. And so, Gbontwi, why are we beginning with this particular framework?
I really, really like this framework, this metric, the diagram. I'm trying to remember the first time I saw it. I think it was in a Dr. Francis Cress Welsing lecture, and I think she put this up in the background. And for me, it's a really handy way of showing people how dysfunctional your African community is. Wherever you are on the continent, this diagram can be used to show you that it's your society, your community is not, your nation is not functioning the way it should be. And we can get into the white supremacy element of it, and this is in a given conversation, or we don't even have to per se. The conversation itself will lead there in its own time. So you can take any one of these 9 pillars, and wherever you are as a person of African heritage, wherever you are living, how you are exposed to those things. So what expression did you use? Ways of people. I want to use your
areas of people activity.
Right, I really like that. Exactly, areas of people activity will show that it's benefiting anybody but you. You understand? So that's why I always go to this. We may go to the sort of adapted, or I should say, not even the adapted for sort of modern language version that I use for certain conversations. Yeah, that's this one. But both really achieve the same thing. of showing that, okay, where education is concerned, you've got education in Ghana, since we're talking about Ghana specifically, which is curriculums not designed by us, education that doesn't solve our problems. And we know that Amos Wilson, one of the markers that Amos Wilson put down was that education is supposed to solve your problems, and education doesn't do that for us. And then labor, apart from the fact that there's rampant unemployment in Ghana, what jobs there are, once again, are not solving our problems. Women, as African women across the world, they suffer from this triple discrimination. They deal with the same racism that we deal with, the same classism that we males deal with, and on top of that, they have that gender conflict, that sexism, patriarchy, that they're further victims of. Once again, argue one of those three prejudices, discrimination.
Okay, we have a freezing moment once again, brothers and sisters. Do bear with us. We will get there. All right. But I hope you see where we're going with this. Yeah. So we're just looking at providing this framework for us to analyze, our positioning as a people. Okay. And so going back to the original framework of areas of people activity, just looking at the economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Yeah. So if we look at our condition and we look at Ghana in this instance through this lens, it will provide us some insights about our position and the extent to which the institutions of society are working on behalf of the masses or in our favor. Go ahead, Gbontwi.
Yeah, exactly. What you're saying. So, I don't want this to be, it's a podcast. So I don't want it to be like I'm giving a presentation up here. So yeah, I'm cool to go through this one by one. So we can have some, sort of delve into some examples. I'm hoping that we're hearing from our those out there in YouTube land, and hopefully they're getting some chat, can answer some questions as we go along. But yeah. With all of these pillars, they're not of our design, they're not benefiting us, and very often there's this sense of irrelevance. When it comes to entertainment, a security, I can't remember what the specific role description was. As a security consultant, I believe he was from Niger. He said, anywhere you go in Africa, if you listen to the radio or watch the TV, it seems like everything is perfect. And when he said it, it was really funny when he said it. And it's something I think I had probably said something to that effect, but he put it just so succinctly. He put it so succinctly there. It's very, very true that our entertainment, that is in this case, our media, very often our music, does not speak to our realities. And I know a lot of people have that criticism of their music, that it's the same thing, or actually, and then some people also have the criticism that there's too much emphasis on the negativity of the environment that the singers are coming from. But that's a debate that could be had in Ghana, especially. There's definitely that sort of feeling that there's a stark lack of reality, and it's getting worse in our music. And I guess you could argue the worst part about it, it's probably not the worst, but the worst part is that the masses buy into this music, because then music just becomes about singing and dancing, which it hasn't been for us historically. Music has always had a revolutionary, a resistance element. So that's actually the worst part of it. The worst part of it is that kind of further dumbing down of we the masses, and music just becomes about music. the era of the Bob Marleys and Fela Kuti seem to be so long gone. But a big element, which is coming to sort of spark reality, spark clarity of late, is that the musicians themselves are not equipped politically to deal with challenges when they come their way. So just, I think last week or so, there was some issues Ghanaian artists were having as far as feeling like they weren't getting paid fairly by certain live music promoters. Now, the debate can always be had around demand of music and, of course, what drives that demand and various algorithms and things like that. But the fact is, if we're going to look at it politically, there is ways that a group of musicians, especially popular musicians at that, can utilize their power to make sure, unionizing in some way, to make sure that whatever demands that they have are met. But actually, because of the total sort of political illiteracy in their music, and then also to a great extent then how they interact with us. One artist during a really active political uprising amongst the youth that sort of spanned from around 2022 to the present, being is driven by the popular hashtag Fix the Country. Shatta quote said, "Oh, fix yourself." And if you've heard of Ali, he's this dancehall artist, and which of course dancehall being a direct relation to reggae, and we know what reggae music and is. So it's really sad to see somebody in that family of music really not seeing
the contradiction in what he's saying.
What their legacy should be as far as the music.
Let me ask you a question, bro. Because did you cut out slightly? So did you mention the artist's name? I was gonna make sure you. Okay, so this is Shatta Wale, for those who may not have heard the name of the artist. Very, very big artist in Jamaica. Is in fact, well, I was going to say the self-proclaimed, but I few people would deny him the accolade as the dancehall king of the whole Ghana. In that regard, and so very, very good artist.
I would say a lot of Stonebwoy followers would argue that. What I'm saying. Well,
this is how I've heard it described to me, bro. It's been said that Shatta Wale is the home boss. So when it's on Ghana, so what I'm saying, that few people are testing Shatta Wale, especially when it comes to stage. But Stonebwoy is the global boss. Like when it comes to the world, Stonebwoy is running things in the rest of the world. You know what I'm saying? Let me ask this: did Stonebwoy ever clarify? Was he ever addressed about what he meant by this statement, "Fix yourself," as a response to "Fix the Country"? And what did he say?
Yeah, I mean, he pretty much doubled down on it to say that, as so often happens with these things, kind of like pointing at some of the problematic behaviors of youth.
Right.
Keep in mind that his base is the youth. He was talking directly to his base. But no, I don't think he really put that together. That it's very specifically his youth that are most plagued by the unemployment, by exploitation by the political classes when it comes to political rallies and stuff like this. Jobs and things that they should be getting, instead going to various imports, franchises that political.
Brothers and sisters, we're running into a into the issue again. Do not worry, yeah, brother Gbontwi will be back. But we're just at the moment we're just going through the areas of people activity, and we're analyzing the situation in Ghana according to the areas of people activity. And so we've kind of just inadvertently started on the issue of entertainment, and we were just discussing a well-known artist on the scene in Ghana, Shatta Wale, making a statement, a problematic statement, in response to an organized group of young people trying to push for systematic change, yes, within the political economy of Ghana. And his response was to say, fix yourself, yeah? So very, very, not to be cliche, but it's a very neoliberal response, right? You know, to respond, to deflect from any issues of big institutions that have a significant impact on a society by trying to whittle it down to individual choices, yeah, without analyzing as and where those choices come from. Okay, so it's a very unfortunate statement, especially based upon the history of Ghana and the people's appreciation and love for Shatta Wale as an artist. I'm going to ask Gbontwi a couple more questions about this dynamic, because recently, in December, an artist by the name of Fally Ipupa, who is from Congo, yes, was coming over to the UK. He had a concert over here in December. So I have a sister from the Congo. I'm going to ask her, you know, if she's a fan of Fally, because I was considering going to the concert, right? And she said, you know, we all love Fally Ipupa, but we're not into him right now because he's not discussing what is taking place in the Congo, yeah. And so from that, you know, I stood in solidarity with my brothers and sisters from Congo who had that position and decided that, you know, if my brothers and sisters from the Congo are taking a position in relation to Fally Ipupa based upon his lack of willingness to speak out on the issues facing the people of the Congo, Mr. Menago. Yeah, and that's just that. And then you know, that same criticism is happening in relation to the African Nations Cup just concluded not too long ago, and many are challenging the football team and football players in relation to their willingness or lack thereof to speak up. Yeah, and so this is an area again that, you know, affects us around the world. Yeah, so Gbontwi, you were answering my question about the Shatta Wale's response when he was asked about this, and he basically
so basically, he would point at the problematic behaviors of the youth. So the youths were basically the architects of their own problems.
Right.
So yeah, so it's that kind of very superficial. Oh, look how they behave, this and this and this, and meanwhile, how can they be architects of their own things when they're homeless? You know what I mean? They can't even.
Right.
You know,
right, exactly. Do you know what's interesting, Gbontwi, right? Because obviously, as you know, I was in Ghana in December, and there was a big there was beef, yeah, in and around the Christmas period, because there were Shatta Wale is said to usually host a show in the National Stadium around that time, and Stonebwoy, a few days before Shatta Wale would normally host a show, hosted a show in the same venue. And so Shatta Wale had to move his show to January. But the reason why I bring it up is because Shatta Wale is known to be very philanthropic, yeah, in the midst of that show, right? So apparently he gives out a lot of either money or mobile phones, and he makes the show free for the masses and so on and so forth, yeah. To what extent is his position on this issue balanced by at least charity? And in what context should we put the charity in relation to that statement? Like, you know what I'm saying? Does the level of charity balance up the ignorance within the statement?
No, because it's like there's a whole essay there. Like, so much of what we're going to discuss is a whole essay. So I really want people to ask questions on that and sort of like, okay, which parts are, you know, do they want fleshing out on? Because what he's doing is basically tantamount to what the politicians do every election year. They come and they do give out cash, and they do give out toys, and they do give out gadgets and all of this, and t-shirts and fried rice. You know what I mean? To come vote for me, to let me you know, ignore you you know, until I need you again. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you know, philanthropy has been massively criticized in certain circles about how it's not sustainable.
Yes.
And, you know, the kind of behaviors that it creates in people that are, you know, become accustomed to handouts and stuff. So there are, yeah, important debates to be had about that. You definitely can't dismiss it out of hand and stuff like that. But if we are talking about giving ourselves, to overuse that that cliche about learning how to fish, Shatawale has to understand what it is that his youth really, really need, so that he doesn't have to give them things the next year he comes around. And then that's talking, you know, about him and interacting with the masses, but it comes down to his own self-interest, because if you have a base that understands politically what it is to solidarize with your interest, and to understand what it is to make sure that you are respected in certain fields, then when this issue comes around of he feeling like he's not getting paid enough, his own people will do what it takes to do the needful to make sure that his music and the music of his peers gets the respect that he feels it deserves. You know what I mean?
100%. 100%.
Yeah,
Brothers
so,
and sisters, we're going through 100%. We're going through these areas of people activity, and the adapted version of it that Gbontwi has prepared for us. And at the moment, we're just discussing a couple issues in the area of entertainment, as is designated on this particular diagram here. I've got one more question on this one, and you can take it where you want to take it, right? Because recently, because it's not as though, like, looking at it from now, just not limited to Ghana, but how the entertainment industry in Ghana interacts with other parts of the continent. Recently, there was an issue about was it Afrochella or was it Afro Nation? One of the two.
It's Afro. Okay. Afrochella is now Afro Future.
Okay.
And Afro Nation is still Afro Nation.
It's still Afro Nation. So it was Afro Nation then, and the supposed banning of Ghana artists or Niger artists or some nonsense, like, you know, like it seems that in place of actually addressing, you know, fundamental political and economic issues, there's a lot of frivolity that takes place in terms of people vying for supremacy in a competing market, a music market, based upon the nation state that they come from, if that makes sense. Just speak to that dynamic for a second, please.
I mean, that's what I'm talking about. This is the issue that it stemmed from. As I understand it, Ghanaian artists weren't getting paid as much. I don't know the metrics, and I don't know who measures the metrics around where the demand for music is. But I think it's generally understood that Nigerian artists are more popular when it comes to Afro beats. So Ghanaian artists weren't getting paid as much. Now that's what I'm talking about, as far as like, when this situation arises, what you just said, let's look at this thing intelligently, and talk about, you know, where we stand, and actually, are the metrics correct? Is it about actually how much demand there is? Because obviously Nigeria is a bigger music market, bigger, you know, all of that kind of thing. But instead, like you're saying, it just descended into like some lazy xenophobia and which is it's a shame, because it's the way too many conversations which actually should lean towards the Pan-African leads towards more sort of self-balkanization. And I know for a fact, any one of the people who were speaking out and where it got stupid on social media and Nigeria versus Ghana, any one of those people would at any other time talk about how nonsensical the borders are, that these borders are not of our making. But then when it gets, I don't use the word convenient, but I guess convenient is convenient right now. When it gets convenient, then we fall back and say, oh yeah, well, Nigeria is better, Ghana is better. It's like
nonsense,
you know, Yeah, so
Okay.
that's part of it's what I'm talking about around what happens when you say fix yourself. Now, okay, if you leave us to ourselves, then we're gonna leave you to yourselves. Ghanaians, if we are talking about demand and like Ghanaians sit up and say, oh, our fellow people who rode with us during these
Right.
fixed protests against our government to make sure things were fair and just and transparent, they're feeling hard done by this these music festival people. Let's
Right.
make sure
Right.
that we boycott Nigerian music, but let's make sure that we're intentional about playing
Right.
Ghana music. Let's do what they did for us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there wasn't that in that direction, and then so there's
Mm,
not going to be that in our direction. So
mm. Okay.
yeah, it really it snapped back on brother Wally really quickly. Even the name Shatta Wally, the Wally is
Yeah.
a Nigerian is a Nigerian influenced name. There's no
Name, right.
Wally or Wallyism in Ghana. So it's a beautiful thing that he did, and then there's the
Yes.
Shatta is from the Caribbean as well.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
without him
Yes.
realizing it, maybe he does realize, I'm not sure. That
Mm, mm,
name
mm.
is a nod to the Pan-Africanist ethic.
Yes. Yes.
Unfortunately, yeah, it's not really about that life, as the kids say. You know what I mean?
Okay. All right. All right. All right. Bro, let me know where you want to go next in terms of our framework here. What
Mm.
area of people activity you want to touch on next, and we'll break it down.
Yeah, we've talked about labor a little bit. Labor,
Right.
I think all of our listeners will straight away be able to subscribe to that. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think anywhere in the world unemployment isn't a problem. But
Mm-hmm.
in Ghana, there's a aggressive neglect of so many opportunities that could produce not just jobs, but jobs of meaning and consequence and
Right.
impact in people's
Mm-hmm.
environments.
Mm.
Agriculture, technology, these are markets that Ghana is primed for. Ghana, like basically, I think every single African country has got
Mm-hmm.
a growing youth population, where most of Europe and even Asia, I know China certainly, has a declining youth
Mm-hmm.
percentage, I should say demographic. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so, yeah, the youth and making sure that youth employers should be number one priority for our government, and it is not.
Mm-hmm.
It is by far um, behind other things as far as priorities. If anybody was to list where our government has put its energies, it definitely hasn't been on enabling our environments and industry
Right.
for youth to enter it. And that is whichever way you feel like government should be involved. If you believe in as much government involvement as possible, then literally where they literally take industry by the hand, they haven't done
Mm-hmm.
that. If you talk
Mm-hmm.
about where they hands off, but they enable employers to look after the youth, they haven't done
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah.
And such things. It's just been
But
still.
Bonchi, so maybe we will be going into this in a future episode, however. But there may be somebody
Definitely.
listening who's thinking to themselves, but hold on, Gbontwi Anyetei. I heard that Nana Akufo-Addo was locking off exports of cocoa from Ghana so as to grow the cocoa industry in Ghana. That's a headline that we've heard recently. Is that not been
Mm.
taking place?
No, I need to do a proper piece of research on that. That one specifically was to do with refusing to export to Switzerland. It was only one country.
One country, right?
And so I need to first of all find out if that actually happened,
Mm-hmm.
because rules that I know that Akufo-Addo talked about bringing in,
Mm-hmm.
he did not execute.
Right, right, right.
So with this one, it'll be interesting to see actually how that played out in reality.
Mm-hmm.
And possibly also what the argument behind it was. But yes, with that kind of thing, and I love it. I'm in Ghana what somebody would call a book long guy. You know, I like reading. I like measured, rationalized conversation, but I also love violence. I also enjoy violence. So when I hear basic things like, we're not importing to Switzerland, we're not exporting to Switzerland anymore. When I hear Museveni in Uganda, we're not importing secondhand clothes anymore. I love these things. Okay, it's not all the way thought through, but we need some energy like that. Bring that kind of like, we don't care energy. You know what I mean? IDGAF energy. But if we want to be serious, if you any kind of measure like that you bring in to say banning of imports, you have to have a what do they say in physics? You have to have an equal and opposite reaction on the ground to make sure that you are able to compensate for whatever change that brings. So if we're not exporting to Switzerland anymore, and of course, I would say worldwide, the Swiss are most famous for chocolate than Ghana. When I've traveled to other African countries or outside of the continent completely, I'm surprised and not surprised by the amount of people that think that Switzerland, France, Italy actually cocoa, they actually grow cocoa. Belgium, that they actually think the cocoa grows there. So I'm like, how can you not know that cocoa comes from Ghana and Ivory Coast? But when I think about it, it's like, no, it's true. Because I only just found out when I was in Tanzania in 2020 that so-called Italian marble comes from them. I had fully thought that Italy had that. And it's like, of course, what I actually thought about it, it's like, yes, why would Italy have the mind? Of course they're getting that from somewhere else. But I had that marble from Italy, or Italian marble, is from Italy, all the way through the value chain. So it's the same way we're actually thinking that cocoa comes from chocolate, comes from those places. So so whatever has happened with the Switzerland thing, and in all due honesty, I don't know in reality if there's been reality that has really happened. But there has been on the ground. Okay, we are going to do our own processing. We are going to do our own getting up to that sort of level output. That then the Swiss can come and buy, or Swiss the Swiss population can come and buy directly. You get me?
All right, family. We are going through these areas of people activity just to give context for the rest of our series. Ghana, democracy under fire. We were just talking about entertainment, and now we're just dealing with labor and the issues of labor on the ground, and the extent to which, because we're discussing an election, the extent to which the government is actually facilitating the growth and development of the Ghana economy and the people of Ghana through its labor practices or its labor policies. And as Gbontwi just said, it's a very important point. They're failing on any metric. So whether you believe in what they call a small government, and this is important based upon the fact that, as Gbontwi has said, in Ghana's political spectrum, the MPP, which is the party in power at the moment, would be on that side of the spectrum because they are they're aligned with the Conservative Party in the UK or the Republican Party in America. So these are the small government parties, right? So on that metric, they haven't produced in terms of freeing up so-called the market in the sense that it would facilitate growth or access of the ordinary people, or even indigenous companies to be able to take advantage of it. And if you go on the opposite side of the spectrum in terms of state involvement in the economy, they have failed on that metric also. Okay, so on both metrics they have failed. Just a quick point, watching again, this is probably something that we're going to go into in greater detail in the future episode, but there is my experience of Ghana. Obviously there's high unemployment in Ghana, as you've mentioned already, but that high unemployment in Ghana, because there is no social safety net, results in a high amount of what you might refer to as entrepreneurship. Yeah, you know, people who are sellers, usually on the road, and so on. I don't know if you are able to speak to that reality at all as it relates to this issue of labor right now, or should we just wait for a future episode?
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely get into that a later episode. But I like that you use the expression that you might call entrepreneurship, and I definitely wouldn't call it entrepreneurship.
Right.
Regardless of who you speak to around what entrepreneurship is supposed to look like. You know, hawking on the middle of the streets is not that. You know, at best it's, you know, sort of self-employment, if anything, and also petty trading. But yeah, in a not so future episode, we'll be discussing words that have been problematized by Ghanaians, and entrepreneurship is up there alongside democracy, you know, and a number of other words. And on this labor thing, of course, once they're safely in power, a given government will say, well, actually, we're the government. We're supposed to administrate. We're not supposed to create jobs, which of course they very carefully do not say when they want people's votes. They very much promise vote. They very much promise jobs when they're looking for your votes. But yeah, that's definitely another conversation. But yeah, things around enabling that, you know, all the sexy things that my capitalist friends bring up, you know, trickle down economics, you know, enabling business investment, all the things that, you know, small governments must be famous for doing, and leaving the way clear to, you know, create trust for capitalists to come in and invest is not something that's taking place. Yeah, that ecosystem to create for people to create labor for themselves and create jobs for themselves and for true entrepreneurship does not take place.
Okay. All right. Give facts. And another subject for a future episode, brothers and sisters. So we're just touching on the different dynamics at the moment. Where you want to go next, Gbontwi?
Let's go law. Law is always one of the funny ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Break it down.
Law is always one of those funny ones because it's so visual, Ghana's neo-colonial status where it comes to law. We have this hot country. You know, unless you're from one of the higher parts of Europe and you really cannot relate to the heat that we get in Ghana. I think in most parts of, you know, Europe, Western Europe, Southern Europe, they know what it is in summer. Imagine your hottest summer when people are playing tennis and barbecuing on your parks. Like, imagine that basically 99% of the time in Ghana. That level of heat, you know, the entrepreneurs who are selling handkerchiefs in traffic, they never lack for customers. People are always needing handkerchiefs to wipe the sweat. And on top of all that heat, we have our lawyers wearing these heavy, stuffy British wigs. And so that is it's not, as far as our lawyers are concerned, it's not the only pillar of neo-colonialism that we deal with, but it's the most visual, and it's the one that gets picked out by even the most non-radical of figures on sort of social media. Every now and then a whole heap of jokes will run around these wigs that we used to wear, but they are what they look like. They are massive symbols, and when you look further, you see that yes, that British influence is very much still there in the way our lawyers carry on. There we go.
Yeah, this is just a brief snapshot of what Gbontwi's talking about. By the way, this is something that replicates itself all over the black world. Yeah. But yeah, recently there was a judge in Jamaica a couple of years ago who actually burnt his one on social media because it represents a vestige of colonialism. I don't think too many judges in Jamaica followed his example.
Okay.
unfortunately, that never really it never really spread. You know, that particular example never really spread. But yeah, in
That's a shame.
Nigeria, you see this, yeah, all over the black world. So let me know, brothers and sisters, wherever you come from in Africa or the Caribbean, are our lawyers, yes, you know, barristers and judges in particular, still wearing these bloody wigs, yeah, you know, within the context of their profession? Is that what is still going on? Let me know. Let me know where you come from as well, yeah. So type your nation or nations, because you know, so some of we have dual nation, you know, like me, Jamaica and Antigua. You know what I'm saying? So let us know if this is still going on where you come from. I'd appreciate the information. But yeah, continue, Gbontwi. We're on the subject of law.
Yeah, so that's the most visual, you know, manifestation probably across most of these pillars where Ghana is concerned. But yeah, as I said, if you delve deeper, law just continues not to serve us. Shout out people from Food Sovereignty Ghana. That's one of my favorite organizations in Ghana. The amount of work they've been doing for going on 10 years now, I would say. They have been at the vanguard of fighting Monsanto, as was now Bayer, in trying to force GMO seeds into Ghana's agricultural ecosystem. And yeah, that's a whole conversation in of itself. Please, everybody, look that up. Bayer, Monsanto, what they're trying to do to all our land, African and non-African, which is another rarity. And unfortunately, it shouldn't have taken this long, because Food Sovereignty Ghana, they're always there. Every time there's a court date, they are there to make sure that, you know, Monsanto, now Bayer, don't get an easy run where they automatically can say, okay, because of lack of participation, we're going to just pass this thing, and Monsanto get to have, let's say, free reign to bring in their seeds. So I mean, anyone you speak to in Ghana testifies that, yeah, there are GMO seeds in the system, but because it's being smuggled and unofficial and all this kind of thing, is very much on the outside, on the margins. But we know that once you know, the dams, the levees burst legally, it will be, you know, it would be all over our continent. And one of the very things that we pride ourselves on, and visitors to our Ghana pride ourselves on, and this, of course, I'm talking about GMO, and that, of course, is under law, because it's law that are sort of being the handmaidens of bringing that in. But it also pertains to, see, that's why I've got the amended one. It doesn't speak to this, the Neely Fuller list doesn't speak to agriculture or food
directly,
yes, or health. So yeah, I've got you know, food and health sections they added. So very often, where we have this wider conversations directly, this sort of speaks to that. And anybody that you speak to, I mean, you don't even need to speak to a professional to tell you that animals or food that are intentionally interfered with at a cellular level to make sure that they're not born with seeds, they're not born with feathers. Sorry, they don't grow with seeds. And in terms of animals, they're not born with feathers and things. You don't need anybody to tell you that that's not going to, you know, that's not going to either taste right, and it's not going to have the right effect on the consumer, the one eating it. But yeah, there are people, and you know, in Ghana in particular, Food Sovereignty Ghana, that will tell you that yeah, this is poison that they're trying to give you. And yeah, Ghana has had, in the last couple of decades, everybody will tell you strokes are going up, cancer is going up in numbers, it rates that, you know, were unheard of before. And this all relates to, you know, bad practice within agriculture, as well as, you know, increase in takeaway, and which all comes down to how the agricultural sector hasn't been supported. So, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Because what's funny. All right, so a lot of these companies, and this is important, because law affects so many other areas, right? So once you just spoken about it in relation to the agriculture, right? We're talking about we're under the people area, sorry, the area of people activity, which is law, but we're actually having a discussion now about agriculture, yes. And so we have to look at it in terms of the relatedness of these things, yeah. Right, you know what I'm saying? Last month, at the end of last month, a guy in America actually won a case against Roundup, yeah, which is another one of these agricultural companies. Roundup does fertilizer, but the fertilizer is known to cause cancer, yeah. And so he took a case against Roundup, the Roundup company, and won the lawsuit apparently in January of this year, yeah, because he was using Roundup for a period of like 20 odd years and got cancer as a result. All right. And so yeah, but whereas and we've got to delve into this more in a future episode, but the same laws that are now being put in place to restrict and regulate the usage of these things, yeah, like Monsanto and Roundup and so on and so forth, in places like America, are not being applied to places like Ghana. Yeah, so it's like, you know, that's a whole next story, right? But I'm just putting that in there. We'll get into it in a future episode, no doubt. But yeah, we're looking at law and how this affects how law impacts the Ghana system, bro. On this subject, yeah, on a real grassroots level, how do ordinary people interact with the law in Ghana? You know, like and I'm talking about for everything from car accident to petty theft, yeah, you know what I'm saying, whatever it is. How do ordinary people in Ghana interact with the law and the legal system?
Yeah, I think because of this, the same sort of dysfunction I've described,
yeah,
there isn't a healthy interaction with the law. A documentary maker called Anas, he did a documentary. I cannot remember what it's called now. I'm blanking out on what the documentary was called. Let me know if you're able to look it up. Where he basically did you know, a expose. You know, he did an expose on you know, judges in particular,
right,
and the things that they've been doing as far as sort of taking money to make sure a case goes one way or the other.
right,
So there is that. So on the ground, there is the same sort of distrust and contempt
right,
for the legal system, as it is held in for a lot of the others.
right,
You know, the police and government and things like this. So yeah, you have a situation, and this is something that Nkrumah experienced all sorts of challenges with, because you have the law system that is mostly designed on the British system, and that British system is in a lot of ways incompatible with a lot of the traditional sort of governance systems or legal systems, if you like, even that operate. So very often, the traditional systems will be the first go-to, and when they collapse. So by traditional, I mean family, and very often your traditional ruler is some form of relation, grandfather, great uncle,
yes,
uncle even. So
yes,
that's first, you know, family, the family head. There's that kind of I think what in the West would be called mediation.
yeah,
And when that fails, especially to do with sort of land, what you call civil,
yeah,
that would be the first line of discourse. And then when that fails, then which it does more and more when it comes to land and all the things that will be going on with land sale, then it goes to secular law, legislature and so forth. And then of course where the criminal is concerned, upon arrest and everything else, that automatically goes to you know, to lawyers and things, and local courts and you know, high courts.
okay.
But actually, funny enough, even within that, there's that civil war within law, because every year basically there's a issue that arises with the amount of graduating students from the law school in Ghana. As I understand it, and I need to get somebody on to discuss that in greater detail. More students are taken at the law school than can be allowed to graduate.
To graduate.
Yeah, so literally every single year there's this predictable controversy, because people have paid their school fees, they've worked hard, and then very often their lecturers slash anonymous scorers of their papers have had to find some obscure reasons to dismiss their application, their process, so they don't get to qualify. So even within the legal system, there's cannibalism going on. They are eating themselves because the system is not functioning. Ironically, I know lawyers get mocked a lot. There's that funny, I think in Shakespeare, I can't which of his plays it was. I think it's one of the it might be one of the Roman ones. He said, "Oh, the revolution starts now. First thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers." And the characters, their definition of the first thing that has to happen in a revolution. But actually, in a functioning system, there'd be a lot of scope for lawyers, where there's a lot of innovation. I guess we're going to talk about innovation in the science and technology pillar. There needs to be law, because even now in the West, AI is here now. There's whole buildings of lawyers working out, okay, what needs to happen as far as AI and people's intellectual property and all of this. So there's always supposed to be actually scope for lawyers to be creating law and stuff like that.
Understood.
And anticipating things that don't happen for another 10 years, but unfortunately, that word again, dysfunction, means that really the lawyers that Ghana is producing are just come to fight land cases, and the general belief is we don't need that many lawyers to fight the land cases we've got.
Land cases. Interesting. All right, thank you for that, Gbontwi. Brothers and sisters, we're going through areas of people activity. We've got two related frameworks. The original one, I managed to sexy it up a little bit so that people can view it more easily. 1 second, sorry. Oh, wait there. Hopefully the viewership can see all of this. All right. So
seen.
So looking at it in terms of the global system of white supremacy in the center, and then we're looking at education, economics, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, war, and or counter war. That's how Mama Frances Cress Wilson kind of as the counter war element of it. All right. And so we see that all of these areas kind of are informed by the system of global white supremacy, and all of the areas reinforce the system of global white supremacy in general. And so we're looking at all of these areas, people activity, in relation to how they relate to Ghana, and it's providing a general overview and context for our future shows. So for those who are just tuning in, you are tuning into the first episode of Ghana, Democracy Under Fire, with myself and our regular analyst, brother Gbontwi Anyetei. And so we will be with you every fourth Tuesday of the month from 8 p.m. GMT, breaking down some element and aspect of Ghana political economy, historically and contemporarily in the lead up to the election in Ghana in December 2024. All right, so do stay tuned. We're going to be with you throughout 2024 and a bit into 2025 as well, breaking all this stuff down. Yeah, so we've been touching on economics, we've touched on labor, we've touched on entertainment. We touched on entertainment. We haven't touched on economics properly yet. Well, we have, but in relation to other issues. Yeah, labor and entertainment and law. Yes. So where you want to go next, Gbontwi?
Well, I think politics takes care of itself, really, doesn't it? Because that's what we'll be talking about.
Yeah.
And then religion is very often discussed anyway. and debated, for that matter.
Mm.
But let's get into the religion element specifically to talk about, say, for instance, this cathedral. For those who are not aware,
so for those, next month we will delve in more into the cathedral dynamics. So do stay tuned. But go ahead, Gbontwi.
yeah. So with this cathedral, once again, it's symbolic. So many of these things that we're going to talk about, you could just take that one thing by itself, analyze the value chain of it, do some what Atto Quason of Stanford University calls horizontal archaeology. Very often we think of archaeology as, you know, digging, but actually you could do horizontal archaeology around anything. And ask yourself questions about a project, a proposed project, and what it says about the people, or maybe first what it should say about the people. Somebody says a cathedral, okay, but cathedral should mean that, okay, the people living in that place are of a certain level of comfort, and then they can start thinking about you analyze it that way, and then you'd actually, okay, let's actually look at the reality. And for me, the cathedral speaks to one of the many contradictions that I and my fellow poor Ghanaians have to contend on a daily basis from our political class, whereby a country that has more than enough churches of different sizes, churches of every denomination, the quiet churches, the loud churches, the old churches, modern ones, the ones still that have some white priests in there, the ones that have only Ghanaian ones, the ones that have visiting preachers from Nigeria and Kenya and Uganda, being Pan-African in their own way. All forms of churches. Nobody has ever bemoaned the lack of churches in Ghana for the last 20 to 30 years, certainly. And of all the things that the government looked to prioritize, it was the building of a cathedral.
Do we know who funded the building of the cathedral?
That was the thing. It was supposed to be private when the idea was first touted. I'll say that was literally a year into his presidency. There was no mention of it before his presidency, you can be sure of that. But into his presidency, he then said that he had a conversation with God. I'm unclear if it was through prayer or some sort of vision while he was conducting other business. Akufo-Addo said that he had been requested, by God to create.
To create a cathedral.
A cathedral. And the idea at the time was that it would be private. It would be privately funded. And so even with, you've got to realize, even with the privately funded element, it still had its criticism, because where he was going to build it was going to involve the knocking down of publicly owned buildings, specifically judges' residences. I should say high court, specifically high court judge residences. And so that it had its criticisms then. And of course, even if it's private money, people were like, including myself, if we have got the wherewithal to get private investment for what at the time was supposed to be $100 million, that was the number that was being touted for the first couple of years of it, $100 million. There's a lot of other things that private money can go into, so it's not taxpayer money, fair enough, but then there's other things it can go into. So that was heavily criticized for basically 5 years to 5 to 6 years. It would get raised every now and then. There was still the search for public for private funding, and then the private funding failed. Then there was basically machinations put in place to then reroute public funds
to the cathedral.
To the cathedral to build it. And this, meanwhile, at this point, with the public funds now being discussed, IMF, another trip to the IMF. That is the International Monetary Fund, for those who are not aware. For another loan, of which there have been too many. And so yeah, it was quite clear then that we're dealing with people whose, to put it as mildly as I can, whose motivations are in no way allied to the interests and meeting the needs of the population. If in the same year it's looking like we're going to IMF, although the politicians were denying it, it was very clear where the economy was going and the lack of a lot of what we've been discussing in this very podcast. Took us back to the IMF, that there wasn't going to be that how could there be a cathedral get built with public funds in the same breath? It was impossible.
Okay. All right, let's stick on this religion point for a sec, but I'm going to keep it on how it relates to architecture. When I was in Accra in December, I was driving in a Uber, and I saw this big building, right? And so I asked the driver, "What's that building over there?" And he said, "It's a mosque. Yes, giant mosque, right?" But then he followed it up by saying, and I didn't ask him this, he just volunteered the information. It was built or funded by the Turkish. I can't remember which one he said, built or funded by Turkey.
Yeah, I know the mosque you mean. Yeah.
Right. Big giant mosque. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when I came, and this is why I have to, for those who are not, I got to give thanks to always eternally to Gbontwi, because when I first went to Ghana in 2015, he was taking me around, so I learned a lot of things whilst I was there. One of the things I learned though whilst I was there in 2015 is that a Buddhist temple was being built. And if I remember rightly, was that being funded from China as well?
I can't remember. Right. I know there is one in Dansoman, at least one. I'm not sure where there are others.
Where the money came from. Okay.
Yeah, the one you're thinking of, that this the mosque is it's Kawukudi. Yeah. Just north of 37 Military Hospital.
Right.
Yeah, and that was paid for by the Turkish.
By the Turkish.
Yeah.
But and then one of the reasons why, we've got a dynamic of the government trying to find private or public funds to build cathedrals, and we've got another thing about other nations that are funding religious edifices within the nation of Ghana, in a nation that doesn't have adequate housing, particularly in Accra for the people there, right?
And particularly in the area where that mosque is opposite. Nima is notoriously especially problematic when it comes to housing challenges. So to have a mosque of that grandiosity literally across the road is one of many contradictions.
Which is interesting because so there are signs and symbols that if you are not informed, you will not notice. And one of the things that Gbontwi educated me about when I was there in 2015 was because Accra is really because Accra is really a Ga city. Yeah, it's a city that was developed by the Ga. And so there are certain signs that you will see where, like the Wolome, which is the traditional Ga priests, live. Like there are certain things that you can identify them by, but if you were not aware, you would walk past those things. It's very humble, right? Look like any ordinary yard. Right?
Yeah. Our shrines are very unspectacular. I always figured that shrines were these big burning edifices, and very clear that yes, we are motivated by African spirituality in this place. So when I found out that these are our shrines, I was humbled. Impressed, and part of kind of like my destigmatization of what African spirituality looked like. Part of that was understanding how simple a thing like a Ga shrine was.
Looks like you know what I'm saying. So I don't know if there's something in that, just in terms of the extent to which like just on the level of, again, architecture, or whether that's reflective of the extent to which those edifices are actually more organically grassroots or closer to the community. They have more of a role in community life, but then they're not impacting, or they're not allowed to impact how that relationship affects the general economy, if that makes sense. So it's an interesting juxtaposition when you look at the architecture and what that says about the nation, So interesting. All right, cool. You got anything more on this one? You want to go somewhere else?
Yeah, we can move.
Go ahead. Where you want to go next?
Yeah, we can move to the next one. What else have we got up there?
We have, so it depends on which version you want to focus on.
Okay, with this one,
but yeah,
I think
go ahead.
with this modern one, the updated one, obviously military, or to
Right.
use the first Chris Wilson one, war and counter
Counter war,
war.
yes, military.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
there's to be said there.
Mm-hmm.
That one along the lines of law is
Mm-hmm.
very, it's some degree very visual. Our soldiers, you know, the uniforms. I always wonder what African military uniform would look like without, you know, this sort of European influence. Both the classical ones, or what they call the dress uniforms, with the, you know, the silk epaulets
Yeah.
and all of this, as well as the
Yeah.
more modern, you know, US military styled
Yes.
uniforms that
Yes.
they all wear. So there's that kind of like similar to the legal system. And then we've got, of course, the thing that the pinnacle of a Ghanaian soldier's
Yeah.
career is to be taken to Sandhurst in Britain, and get that official accreditation that yes, you were carried to Sandhurst and you've trained alongside British soldiers and various British regiments,
Yeah.
and then you know, you return to Ghana, and then you are now primed for promotion and so forth. So that is very much, once again, the visual elements of neocolonialism. If we are, as we allege, a democratic independent nation, how are we getting? How are we considering our military? That's the defender of your population and your resources and your identity, all the things that a nation state represents, as well as, you know, the population. But the highest point of pride is to receive training in a foreign context,
Yeah.
by people who historically have not had your interests at heart.
Okay. Okay.
And yeah, I mean, you know, you speak to a soldier, very much still the approach to soldiering hasn't changed since the colonial era. The population are very much a threat. I always say that when, you know, growing up in Britain, I can count on one hand the amount of times I saw a soldier,
Right.
uniform.
Right.
I remember
Right.
the area I went to school in.
Yes.
There were some people that were soldiers. There were quite a lot of people that were soldiers there. When they came home, they were wearing, they call them civvies. They call them, normal civilian wardrobe. But I think in Ghana, it's a point of pride that they are a soldier. So even when the person is returning home to eat fufu with his wife, he'll have the full uniform on and the heavy, uncomfortable boots. So yeah, that kind of thing. And of course, then you've got the big sore in our eye right now, which is this American military base, which has basically, what is that? It's been our old airports is basically their base now. To update everybody, Ghana had an airport up until, I would say, 2019. I think 2019 or so, they opened a new one in time for the year of return. And then the old airport has essentially become this US military base. So it's very common when you're, you know, going to pick up family members or whatever to see, you know, American soldiers just strolling about the place. So this once again goes against our democracy and the conversation we have around this democracy. I remember how I met you, Shakara, and your father was through the actions that were taking place about Ghanaians in particular, amongst other Africans saying no. But obviously, there's a lot of Ghanaians in London saying no to Africa. And Ghana, for all our weaknesses and as neoliberal as we are and neo-colonized that we are, as we're discussing, we actually said no to a military base as part of this AFRICOM deal. And so they actually had to take shortcuts around the public will,
right,
and put up a base, which they don't call a base. They said it's not really a base, it's just a little camp that we've got around your airport there. It's not a full, and it's true. I mean, I've seen bases, American bases on the continent. I understand why they wouldn't call what they've got in the airport a full base. But yeah, it's American presence. It's Americans can roam around without any passports, and this is a high security area. Security areas don't get more important than airports, especially over the last sort of 20 or 25 years. And you've got these, and they don't even need passports. All they need is their military ID. And I'll be very surprised if the typical Ghanaian police or soldier knew what a correct American military ID looked like. So that's a risk of all kinds, where somebody who's looking to manipulate the situation can say, "I'm a soldier." They've got some old ID.
A mad situation. Like America would not tolerate that. Britain would not tolerate that. France would not tolerate like a foreign nation controlling a terminal in your airport, and you don't have jurisdiction over who goes in and out of it. That's madness. It's total mad. I want people to understand what's actually happening here. That the American government and the American military actually control. I can't remember which terminal it is. It Terminal 3?
It's the old one. It's old Terminal 1.
The old terminal, right? Of the that, and so the government of Ghana, and its security forces have no jurisdiction over who got through there. And anybody can just come in and out based upon America's designation, and the government and the security forces of Ghana have nothing to say to them. This is madness.
When Kamala Harris, I'm laughing, but I really shouldn't, because it's like, it's painful but funny at the same time. It's kind of only Frantz Fanon's writing can really encapsulate. When Kamala Harris came, there's these images of Ghana police and Ghana soldiers being searched. When they were coming into the vicinity of where Kamala Harris was coming to. So our soldiers then became the visitors. They became the risk. After being born and raised in Ghana, and then swearing whatever oath that they swear to say, I'm becoming a loyal soldier, they had now become the risk, and they get searched because the American vice president was in town. It was funny, but insulting at the same time.
100%. No, that is funny. I mean, I've dealt with one or two police and military in Ghana, and like when the first time I went to Ghana, I just came away saying like "F the police" in every language. Like it was like that. It was like that. Let me highlight something that you said as well, that Ghana military are still being trained in Britain. And not only are they being trained in Britain, that's the pinnacle of their training, right? The pinnacle of Ghana military training is coming to Sandhurst in Britain, to qualify, and then going back to Ghana. So then now in most majority Black nations in the world, because the title for this podcast, this show is inspired by a song, by Fela and Nicola Pokuti called "Teacher Don't Teach Me Nonsense." Now I will encourage everybody to go and listen to that tune once we have concluded.
Very song. And if you end up going down a rabbit hole of Fela Kuti songs, that is perfectly all right as well. Perfectly acceptable.
100%, right? But there's a part in the in the song where he says basically he's going through like the fact that the Oyibo, the white man, taught us democracy, and so then he's saying that, well, if the white man taught us democracy, he says, well, Oyibo them not tell army self that for England the army not fit take over, right? So in England the army is not fit to take over, but all over Africa the Oyibo is sponsoring and supporting military takeovers, of various governments, right? In that time, and so they're not correcting their students in democracy on these levels when it happens over here, right? So in majority Black nations, the military tends to act, whereas in like you said, when you was in the UK, you could count on one hand the amount of times that you saw an army personnel, because they're not supposed to operate on the streets of London or the streets of the UK. But then in like the Caribbean and Africa, the military kind of acts as an extension of the police force. So we see them all the time, regular. all about the place. Yeah, they're policing the nation rather than protecting the nation from
100%.
foreign threats. Is that the case in Ghana? Is that, let's give our viewers an idea of that. Is that the case in Ghana
Absolutely.
in terms of how the
Yeah.
military operates?
How I've heard it described is when the soldiers were first assigned, and this would have been European soldiers in the colonial era, they were there to make sure that there was no rebellion against the British government, the colonial government. So very much so, the African population was indeed actually a threat. Because whatever lies and propaganda the British were putting around the world about Gold Coast, as it was then, being a model colony, they knew that nobody enjoys being colonized, whatever their newsreels were saying. So they saw us on a daily basis, and rightly so, as a threat. Now, all the training, the attitude, the posturing of soldiers as positioned and as designated in Ghana or Gold Coast then, has transferred right into this post-independence era, whereby our soldiers very much take that same posturing. If you ask them why it is that they're being so aggressive, some of them won't even know. It's just how they've been trained. We are a threat. We're not their brothers and sisters who there can be a foreign attack against us, and there is in that instance it's their job to protect us, or maybe even enlist us as paramilitaries to support them or whatever. We are the threat. And I've had some conversations with them where it's actually given them some pause to think that this is not how and this is both soldiers rank and file who have only been in Ghana. Sometimes they've been assigned to other African countries, which is nice, to be fair. And then those who are of some seniority, sometimes retirees who have done the Sandhurst thing, and they don't. When they think about it, like, it's true. Yeah, that same sort of oppressive, adversarial approach that they have to us is not the same thing that their British comrades had when they went out there, or even the American soldiers who we now have running around and doing various underhanded things, either in the airport or in rural parts of the country.
Interesting. In another episode, we'll get into why you need to find American military in rural parts of Ghana. What is the point of that? There must be a reason, right? So we're going to get into that at some point. This is a very interesting topic of conversation, like just the military thing, especially in the context of the series of military coups that have taken place in West Africa that have a lot of us as Pan-Africanists, observing with keen eyes, what I'm saying, skeptical in some, skeptically optimistic for others, scratching our heads, what I'm saying, and all kinds of different things. But one of the things that we do know is that ECOWAS was galvanizing to invade Niger at one point, or threatening to invade Niger at one point. But we didn't. The spearhead of that was Nigeria. We didn't hear much as far as Ghana is concerned. But what was Ghana saying in the midst of all of those dynamics? If you're aware of what Nana Akufo-Addo was saying.
Nana Akufo-Addo, for better or worse, and by better or worse, I mean worse all the time. I can't think of any way she's been better. Is the representative politically and figurehead for all things Ghana interests. And he sat down with this American technocrat. I can't remember his name. And I've had some interesting conversation about that specific video. We have to try and remember to put that post in the chat after, so we can go and find that video. Where he basically says that he's afraid of the change of regime in Burkina Faso, and thus he wants American support in defense. Right. And I'm a historian, but I would like to think that you don't have to be a historian to know that when you ask Americans for assistance, you're only meaning one thing. That's you want guns to be blasting, and Gbontwi blushing at your brothers and sisters. And actually, this is what I liked. The media did a good job, and I think possibly because of the proximity to the election, I always find that Ghana media gets braver when the election is looming, because there's obviously a change of government. Politicians are focused on winning elections rather than kind of like the intimidation practices that they do a little bit to keep the media in line and maintain state capture. They interviewed people, soldiers, with that. What do you call that thing when their faces are dimmed out?
Yeah, I can't remember what. Yeah, go on.
They made anonymous, so soldiers speaking anonymously, saying, there's no way if ECOWAS, that means basically Ghanaian soldiers, Togo soldiers, Benin, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, if we are assigned to go and attack Burkina Faso, we will not go.
You will not go, right?
Because those people are our brothers and sisters.
Right.
Again,
sorry, as far as people may not be aware, Burkina Faso is literally the nation that borders Ghana on its northern border. So literally, like, that's literal, yeah. Like the people that are on one side of the border actually share family with people that are on the other side of the border, literally speaking. Yeah. So go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
There's at least 3 ethnicities, at least 3, that are on both sides of the border. So, one of my favorite writers, or I say writer of my favorite books, Malidoma Patrice Somé, he said in his book of Water and Spirit that he hated being described as I don't remember what word he used, but that he wasn't keen on being described as a big Burkinabe, because his people were in Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast, and Ghana. To call himself a Burkinabe just because he happened to be born on the Burkinabe side it is absurd. But it's what we do, because you need a passport to travel. You need to fill these forms, so that's what you do. But in reality, we know that these borders are ludicrous. And so to call for violence against your brothers and sisters and things was something that even Ghanaian soldiers with the rampant mystification that all we Ghanaians get on a daily basis. We're like, no, we're not going to do it. So that has quietened down, and actually, literally in this week, today is Tuesday, so probably not this week. I think the weekend or late last week, an announcement came via Tinubu, who is the this Tinubu guy. Basically, he's the head of ECOWAS, the chair. And he basically put a statement saying that they're inviting Nigeria and Burkina Faso to rejoin. Simply because that the grandstanding and what do they call it? They call it saber rattling.
Yes.
Didn't come off, and you saw all kinds of videos of Nigeria people enlisting, saying that we're ready. And it made me so sad. If Ghana comes, let them do all this kind of thing. It's like, please, it's not Ghana. It's
it's Africa.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? All right, bro. You know what? I'm conscious of the time, and there's a number of points that we still got to get through, right? So I'm gonna raise a specific point, and you can inform us which area of people activity they fit under. Yeah, make sense? All right, cool. So we've got something here about bots, and Russian agents, and trolls, as far as Ghana's I guess internet and social media is concerned. What explain that to us?
So I'll put that under science and technology.
Right.
Please put the thing up again.
Yes.
I'll put up under science and technology. And I remember something Amos Wilson said. He said it a few times. He said that if we don't get organized, every new technology that comes will be a weapon against us.
Yes.
He was, of course, speaking before the internet, and he's of course right. It has become a weapon mostly against us. Yes, we're happy. There's been some Ghanaian, Nigerian, Kenyan, Rwandan, South African innovators. We've had some apps being built and stuff like this. But by and and of course the ability to communicate with each other and even, you know, remit money to each other and stuff like this has all been good. But yeah, too much of this new technology has been weaponized against us, and the internet and with what's going on with bots, and I know bots is, you know, bots and these sort of fake accounts affect, you know, all parts of the internet and affect all, you know, even football conversations, you know, they're in it, those trolls and things. But because of Ghana's sort of disheveled state, means that we're always particularly vulnerable to these things. So you have a situation, and I recommend everybody watches you know, but this documentary about Cambridge Analytica.
Right.
That came out a good while ago. How the likes of Facebook and things were used to manipulate Ghana popular what do you call it, popular response and opinions to things. In I think it was before specifically the 2012 election, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So you have that sort of situation.
Sorry, this is an interesting point, because many people might, because Cambridge Analytica was big news in the UK, but it was related to UK and America in particular. So people may not have been fully aware of the fact that this was actually impacting the continent in general, and Ghana in particular. So go ahead, continue.
Yeah, they were taking on contracts to say, listen, we can manipulate your algorithms and make sure that your voters only get a particular message and don't get messages you don't want, in order to basically buy you an election. So there was the Cambridge Analytica thing too, and then we've also heard about houses of kind of like hackers and spammers being organized by Russians, apparently, allegedly. Also with the express purpose of manipulating popular opinion. And funny enough, a lot of those popular opinions were to do with debates in America around Black Lives Matter and stuff like this. So a lot of we're also manipulating, you know, popular thoughts over there and trying to and influencing people by pretending to be so and so and pretending to be that. They weren't. So sometimes you can tell because their grammar and, you know, syntax off, the rhythm of their conversation is off. But a lot of the time, you know, you can't tell.
No, 100%.
So you've got that. And then you've got the whole element around, you know, some of the manipulations like that are subtle. You don't find out about it until years, but then years later, as I didn't find out about this Cambridge Analytica thing, but you also find out things like, which is clear, you know, people have phones, smartphones, and then when you're looking to top up your internet, you get an offer to only top up your data, the data that you top up. If you take a package which only updates your Facebook, basically the social media stuff only, the data lasts longer.
Okay.
Now, of course, we know that there's lots of conscious and educational material on the YouTube, even on the TikToks and the Instagrams. You know what I mean?
But we don't own it, so the algorithm.
Exactly. So to basically encourage people not to go on, if you could call the rest of the internet free, but internet where you can go and do your own independent searches, is, you know, definitely part of a massive campaign to make sure that we only get information that is being managed. Especially too, we also know that the likes of Facebook and things are barring certain posts and calling, you know, certain posts unreliable and community notes. Which, when the apology comes, actually this community note was wrong, this warning about this post was wrong, they know that the damage is done. People are not going to return to that post. The same amount of people are not going to return to that post and ascertain, oh, by the way, there's been an apology issued for warning.
No, point taken, bro. This is an interesting one because obviously we're trying to technologically advance as a people, but I think how you opened it with Amos Wilson's warning in terms of if we are not organized, then all of the advancements in technology will be used to reinforce the subjugation. Yeah, and so we're even the influx of new technology will be actually a tool of our underdevelopment rather than our development. And I think the example of mobile phones is actually a stark one. If you are on the streets of Accra, there are hundreds, of mobile phone stands and people actually selling mobile phones in all kinds of different contraptions on the road. Even just in their hand, there's mobile phones galore in the country. But the existence of this technology, which is they say is supposed to give people access to the internet so that they can be more entrepreneurial and so on and so forth, is not registering in any way, shape, or form in relation to the living standards of people, access to food, clothing, and shelter, and so on and so forth. Like if technology alone was going to do it, and the mobile phone right now is the most advanced kind of technology, communication technology that there is. If that was going to do it, then at least Accra,
they should have done it.
You know what I'm saying? Or be in the process of doing it, and there's no sign of it. So it suggests that there's something more that is needed rather than just having access to technology. Not denying the need for access to technology, but there is a missing cog in that wheel in terms of our own interest at the moment. So but all right, cool. We touched on that. Let's go on to this into this next point. You got an interesting one here about PLO Lumumba. Why is he mentioned in the country?
No, PLO Lumumba, I think was in my notes. I've got it there as one of the upsides, kind of like African, and I mentioned as much in the last conversation that we had around the cancellation of that convention.
Yes.
He is somebody whose posts have been able to get past the noise of being, girls, baddies with long eyelashes and all this sort of thing. But of course, there's a limit to what his posts can achieve and what they aim to achieve. Kind of like his stuff is kind of like more informative as far as sort of, getting people ready for action in any way. But he's definitely up there as one of the positives. Yeah.
Do you know what's interesting to me? I'm kind of touching on the technology point as well, and you as an Nkrumahist would know that when it comes to technological and industrial advancement, the fastest period of industrial advancement in Ghana happened in its first 10 years, in its first decade, in the presidency of Nkrumah, right? And so it suggests that I'm saying that to say that those more progressive leaders that we have, however they self-define or define themselves ideologically and whatever, tended to have an inclination towards technology and industrial advancement. You know what I'm saying? That was not a hurdle. Like none of them were trying to roll back the clock. You know what I'm saying? And create, completely agrarian societies and the kind of things. And that's just not the case, isn't it? And I'm saying that because people have that misconception sometimes that people are we're anti technology. Do you know what I'm saying? Maybe anti some technology, right? But not anti technology in general. So let's making that point. All right, let's go on to another point here. Telco social only packages.
That's what I'm talking about. The YouTube, TikTok only, Instagram only.
Okay, I remember. I got it. Yeah, and I experienced that as well. They'll give you like deals whereby you use up less data.
Exactly.
If you're using Facebook, so they will only access the videos if you want to, and then. Yeah. But you made an interesting point though. When we was at that event, I forget the name of the event. What's the name of the event that we went to with Baba, the Ruba bin Wahad and Kwesi Pratt?
Oh, I can't remember what it was called. They had Pan-African in the title, Pan-African and diaspora. It was something. This is a program. I can't remember what it was called though.
But you made an interesting point though about the extent to which media is class stratified based upon access to consistent data.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. Like, just speak to that for a second. In this, like, in the context of PLO Lumumba being able to pierce through the noise, so to speak. Yeah. How much does that get through to the ordinary people, though, based upon
See,
access to consistent kind of thing?
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
First of all, everything in Ghana is class stratified. Like, if I haven't made that clear, then that's my bad.
Yeah.
But everything has a class dimension where basically the higher your class, the more you're able to afford the luxury of being intentional about
right.
what you choose to learn, what you
Right.
choose to consume. And so
Right.
it's very much the same with the telco situation,
Yes,
the internet situation. You've got people who the internet is now just for betting. You know, the betting thing is out of control.
Yeah. Betting stands all over Accra.
Yeah,
All over the place.
and that
It's
also
mad.
matches with the internet. So even if you've got a normal broad internet package as I do, most of the pop-ups, as you know, we try to fight the
But for
pop-ups. Most of the
betting.
pop-ups that come up are for betting things.
Yeah.
So in that element, it's like what you're exposed to and what you have the luxury class-wise to be able to reject or feel that no, my economic redemption lies elsewhere. I can afford to exercise other options. Others will be like, no, this is all I've got. This is all there is.
What can you name some of the betting companies?
Betway.
Yeah.
I think there's GH Bet.
Yeah.
1x Bet. I'm not sure if that's Ghanaian. I know it's in Ghana and Nigeria. You know.
Yeah.
And a lot of these are
Betway is definitely not Ghanaian.
okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're founded inverted commas in Ghana or in Nigeria, but it's not somebody who is ethnically or even nationally of that country. They just decide to found it in that country because the betting thing is that. And like everything else, we just don't do it scientifically. You know, there's ways of, if you're going to be a professional gambler, being an analysis, and of course it's never that. It's just the usual by heart and hope and praise or betting that we do.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, thanks for that. Then we got the fake news industry and the impact on history.
Yeah, so I think that pertains to what I'm talking about around you know, at Cambridge Analytica and that sort of manipulation.
Visually, right.
Fake news is not unique, as I'm saying, to Ghana.
Yes.
Yeah, we have the challenge that our educational level and literacy is not where it should be, and not where it was. Once again, as you mentioned, under Nkrumah, and so we are especially vulnerable to a lot of the sort of fake news that comes out and don't have the sort of time and or energy to be able to do the necessary research to debunk that. So we'll be talking about fake news, and the fake news comes in different forms. There's fake news. We're talking about it in the context of the internet right now, but there's also, you know, sort of the fake news that comes from our political class, and that goes beyond the usual lies. But like the ways the agendas are running are very unique and specific to that sort of fake news, you know, paradigm, that fake news energy. You get me?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And we look at the privilege of soldierdom and attempted coups. Now, this is an interesting one because there's been some recent news about this in terms of the prosecution of some who attempted a coup recently in Ghana. But yeah, just break this down in terms of what you was bringing to the table where this one is concerned.
Yeah, that was actually quite interesting because that goes to what the conversation we've just been having. You have these soldiers, these overly aggressive soldiers, you know, distrusting us like we're coming to bring all kinds of chaos. And actually, historically in Ghana, there's been no civil coups. I mean, civil coups are unusual anyway, first and foremost. But in Ghana, especially, there's never been one.
Yes.
All of these have always come from actually the military. So I've made that joke when I see that. You know, I'm talking to a soldier that's got a sense of humor, and it's quite rare, especially when they're on. I make that joke that all this bullying that you're doing is you are the guys who actually come and do the craziness. It's like we the civilians we don't do any of the takeovers. It's actually you guys. So it's actually quite interesting. But then they also represent what happens in Ghana a lot of the other time. You are policing people against that which you are doing yourself. I kind of like comment which comes under the kind of like the military conversation, another contradiction.
Yes.
If you're paying attention, it's funny and sort of absurd at the same time.
Right. Okay. And then finally, as far as the points that we've prescribed, how do we take history beyond what we are doing?
Yeah, I mean, this is the conversation around these things, and that's one of the. I think I forgot to mention that at the top of the podcast.
Yes.
I'm, I have in my little mini bio on the podcast here. I'm a organizer, a member of the Economic Fighters League. I'm a member of the All African People's Revolutionary Party, founded by Kwame Nkrumah and Kwame Ture. I'm a writer and an agripreneur. So for me, this podcast, as much as I feel like conversation is important, this podcast for me is an opportunity for me to sort of delineate my thoughts and get clarity on certain things so that I can then carry it into other things that I'm doing. Because with everything that I do, I'm trying to be part of a solution. I've got no interest in just self-aggrandizement. It makes no sense for me to operate as an island, because that is very much the problem with Africa. People have done so much to just uplift themselves, and when they turn around, they fear everybody around them because they've actively operated on a take it all basis. They have reason to believe that everybody's going to try and take it from them. And that's not who what I'm trying to be. So this conversation is me clearing up my thoughts, clarifying it, as well as having that sort of back and forth with you and some interaction with our audience in the long term, and then carrying it into other works that I'm doing on a daily basis.
All right, brothers and sisters, we're interacting with Gbontwi Anyetei, writer, organizer, activist, and as he said, agripreneur. Well, just explain what the agripreneur means, because
agripreneur is I have an agribusiness. So that means a business within agriculture.
Okay.
So that's it's quite a new term. I think I started hearing it a couple of years ago. It's like, I'll have that.
Yes.
And so an entrepreneur crossed with agripreneur. So I process, add value to some of the commodities. There's a conversation we've been having around cocoa.
Right.
We can talk about that other time.
Another point, yes, indeed. I'm just weighing the definition for people. All right, brothers and sisters, it's that time now where we're gonna take your comments and your questions. So feel free to get them in if you want to have your comment read and or question read. And answered, please at gotkushTV. All right, please at gotkushTV, so we can differentiate your specific comment or question from the generic conversation that we also encourage between members of the chat. And the chat has been very active as we have been discussing. And so far today, you are in tune to the inaugural episode of Ghana Democracy Under Fire. Yes, indeed, brothers and sisters, we're putting the quote-unquote democracy system of Ghana under fire in the lead up to the general election coming in December of 2024. And our regular co-host and analyst will be Gbontwi Anyetei throughout this journey. And at different points, we're going to have other guests on to delve deeper into specific issues as well. So do stay tuned for that. We hope you have been full enjoying the conversation thus far. And what we have been doing is using this guide of areas of people activity as popularized by Neely Fuller and Francis Cress Wilson as a framework through which let's give an overview context of Ghana society as it stands right about now. Yeah. And so we're going to get into your questions now based upon the conversation, and tune in every fourth Tuesday of the month for more of this kind of conversation. Specifically, every episode of Ghana Democracy Under Fire will come to you every fourth Tuesday of the month. All right. So we look forward to you joining us throughout this journey, brothers and sisters. Set Imhotep is asking the question. gotkushTV, what about the fellow who was rumored to be launching at the cancelled Pan-African event recently? So this is what's his name, Gbontwi? The guy who's running the part, the new force.
I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Are they from today? I feel like you starred those from the last conversation. I think we asked.
No. This is from today. This is from today.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be Cheddar, aka Bediako.
Yes.
Right. So who was rumored to be launching at the council? Right. So rumored to be, and yes, has actually launched now. So there's posters openly him, trying to be president. So yeah,
Yes.
I looked through his list of. I mean, he's only just getting started. He hasn't got anything like a manifesto, which actually, if he was really trying to be prepared, he would have done. But actually, there's nothing in the bullet points as far as things he's trying to do, which speaks to creating more like him. The sort of things around, how to encourage investment, and all of this. He hasn't spoken to that yet. So we'll be on standby. It'll be interesting to see what kind of inroads he can make. Funny enough, one of the who I may have mentioned then, Chairman Teng, in our last conversation. So he's actually splintered off. He's splintered off from the NPP because he didn't get to be a flag bearer. So he's actually touting some ideas around economic regeneration. But he's been in the game for a while. I think for the last for basically the 7 years of Akufo-Addo's presidency, he's been trade and what's the other thing? Trade and manufacturing, trade industry minister. So he's got that. He knows how to parlay. He knows to talk. So there's some stuff coming from him, but he's unlikely to make any kind of dent, I think.
Then okay, all right. Thank you for that, Gbontwi. Imhotep also asked. We used to. So this is the answer to the question about whether
the lawyers.
Yeah, we're wearing the wigs. So
do we know what country are you from, brother? Do you know, Shaq?
Yeah, Trinidad.
Oh,
Trinidad,
very good. That's good to know. Trinidad, yes. Yeah. Everything I hear about Trinidad is always impressive. CLR James, all these guys. Yes. Quality. Eric Williams, although he became problematic later on.
Yeah, 100%. We used to, but we don't wear them anymore. Apparently, specifically because the country is too hot.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know if there's some conversation around Ghanaian lawyers hyperventilating and stuff like that. Like, I would really like to know if there's like some narrative around that, because I'd be very surprised that there's not some overheating and things going on with those things, especially because the courts are very often not air conditioned, very old, colonial
buildings. Yeah. Funny enough, there's another Fela Kuti song that actually speaks to this, Cologne mentality.
Yeah,
he says them judge them are go put to week and jail him brother away no be so it be so. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So yeah, it's a Fela Kuti where he's got a word for everything. Trust me, if you are not a fan, of Fela and Nicola Kuti, we have to create a rule for this podcast. Yeah, thou shalt not listen to this show. Yes, and not be a fan of Fela and Nicola Kuti. Yeah, it is for a must.
This show is like for serious people. I don't know how you can classify yourself as serious and not have Fela's time. Like, I don't know what to say to you. I'm not trying to be judgmental and sideline people and marginalize. I know these are wrong things, but it's like
I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. I have to understand. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. Some people, it might just be lack of exposure. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So we are increasing exposure tonight. Yeah, but if only know Fela and Nicola Kuti, once the thing done, start with listen. Let's start with the two true we name a while ago. Teacher don't teach me nonsense and colonial mentality. Just start this up, yeah. And you know what I mean. Come back next week and confess.
Would you say that if they think they don't like Fela, should they try some of the remixes? Because there's so many remixes. The Burna Boys,
the
Wyclef, even Jay-Z,
True.
They whole album.
I'm gonna say no. To appreciate Fela, you have to appreciate the original. To be fair,
purity,
half of Burna Boy's early catalog is like takes on Fela Kuti. Like,
exactly.
That's the fact. But yeah, to properly get Fela, you have to, because there's a way, and I'll mention one more song, just because I feel like it might be more accessible for a lot of people. Check out Zombie. We were talking about soldiers today. Check out the song Zombie. You know what I'm saying? So so everybody has homework to do. Once we're done, you have to go listen up some Fela Kuti. All right, you know what I'm saying? That's the homework.
I'm not trying to other people, but Fela Kuti is extremely necessary. Like extremely
necessary in this time. All right, and for all times. All right, brothers and sisters. So come back next week, so next month, and declare in praise and worship fashion the magnificence of Fela and Nicola Kuti. All right. And so Imhotep also asks, very interested if Brother Gbontwi could elaborate on the legal structure of Ghana's traditional kingdoms.
Oof, that's an essay. We'll get into that. But let me give it an example. We're talking about democracy, right?
Yes.
So people will say, "Oh, democracy is not good for us. Democracy doesn't suit us." So, but once again, why? Because we're centering Western-style parliamentary systems. But Ghana, even though we've got a diverse, ethnic makeup with different, nations that came together to be now called Ghana. One thing I believe all our chieftaincy systems have, our traditional rulership systems have, is destooling. And to explain what destooling means is to be enstooled is to be enthroned. You have become a ruler then. I know the word chief has become problematic, but you are now the traditional ruler.
Yes.
And now to be destooled is a democratic act by your people to say that you are no longer serving their purposes. You are no longer serving their interests. You have committed some moral breakage. That was an act of democracy. The fact that somebody could be destooled, and the terms for that vary depending on the era, 1800s, 1700s. Today, as we're sitting down, the terms have varied. But yes, so anybody that will tell you that Africans, Democrats, whatever, please, what is in Ghana called destooling, and what is, it has different names in other African, what we consider African countries, and the nations that make it up. Same sort of process around which there was no ultimate ruler for life. There was always a mechanism, what it may be, to take and remove somebody from power. So that on in itself is democratic infrastructure. So 100%. There's more, but that's a good example because we're talking about related to what we're talking about.
I agree. It's an interesting one because I mean that's in relation to because Gbontwi, for those who are not aware, is from Accra, so he's Ga. But then I went to the Ashanti region. I went to Kumasi this time as well, and there's a whole went to the Manshia Palace, and the stooling in the Akan or the Ashanti tradition is done through the Queen Mother. So the Queen Mother can destool the king based upon the will of the people, and that happened in particularly in relation to kings who were more what's the word, in aligned with the British, and wanted to accept British taxation, and so they were destooled, because of the fact that the people never want the taxation them winning.
Exactly.
That happened, and then I learned from another uncle at one point that it was possible traditionally as well among Ashanti for the young people, if the local rulership was not doing right by the people, one of the things that they would do is remove his sandals and make him walk make him walk in the streets, right? And so that was a symbolic of the fact that we're not happy with him at the moment, and this issue needs to be addressed. So these are all rituals and ceremonies that used to be done along the line.
Nkrumah made reference to that in one of his speeches about making chiefs run away without their sandals. He made reference to that specific,
right? You know what I'm saying? You know. So we in my house we call it communiocratic, as a to differentiate from what you said in terms of the problematic
Exactly.
application of democratic in this time.
Yeah. Exactly.
Everything is everything. Says gotkushTV, when you're gonna highlight what Eric Prince said about recolonization of Africa? Yeah, this is I've mentioned it a couple times on previous Zivanai shows every Tuesday 8 p.m. Well, our fourth Tuesday now is going to be dedicated for this year to Ghana democracy under fire. My impression, Gbontwi, is that there's more to this statement than meets the eye, because this guy is a former Navy SEAL and founder of one of the biggest mercenary organizations in the world. And so when somebody of that ilk says something so dramatic on just a random podcast, like his own podcast, there's more to that. There must be more to that than just I'm spouting off. I'm just speaking from my lip.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? I don't know exactly of it, but yeah, and on the one hand though, we should be mindful of the fact that this guy operates within the upper echelon of military engagement as far as America is concerned. He's not officially right. Yeah, he's not officially under the auspices of the government, but he is aligned with, and I should say, put it this way, like officially doesn't mean anything in these circumstances. Yeah, like America as a nation militarily often acts through mercenaries, not its official armed forces, so that it can so that it doesn't always have to go to Congress, right, to get them in the field, so to speak. So yeah, so it's a whole nother conversation for another time, but go ahead, Gbontwi, if you got a comment on this, feel free to.
Yeah, no, I want to do like a whole watch along of that little video. Probably in conjunction with the Matt Kennard podcast as well, talking about basically why the neo-colonial system serves the West right now better than the military system, which Eric Prince is talking about. And you're right too that there's other agendas. I've heard it said that he's got his eye on political positioning. So this Africa recolonization thing, this is his Obama passport moment, as Trump did with that sort of him shooting fame on some controversial thing, and then he will start to sort of sense, inverted commas, at later time. So yeah, I'm happy for time to pass. I'm not a reactionary in any way, and I would like some added context to what his next moves are, so that we respond to that. Like, oh, he just said this. I mean, don't say that's a bad thing, and a lot of good podcasts and social media stuff have done that kind of shit. But for me, before I do the watch along, for me, I'd want some added context, and then we add our context around why he's full of nonsense with that comment.
100%.
As my brother just said, he is especially best positioned to know that the neo-colonial system is more profitable for his and Akufo-Addo, the people that they both employed by, they both sit at the table, that they both collect their crumbs from like things the way they are, the hands-off system now. It would cost them way more, especially with Eric Prince's boys, physical soldiers, monitoring it in a traditional colonial system rather than what they have now with their black skin, white mask puppets in their So yeah, but for me, I want to do a watch along in conjunction with some other pertinent social media within the same ballpark.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let's go next. We've got Kofi Campbell, who asked, how did Nkrumah industrialize Ghana? Example, where did the capital come from?
That's a good question. Like all these questions are all essays. But for one, I'll say cocoa. Cocoa was a huge deal. Ivory Coast just overtook us. I think I want to say within the last decade, definitely within the last decade. But for the last 100 years, Ghana, more than 100, it would have been 120 years actually. Ghana was the main exporter of cocoa. And wherever you are in the world, cocoa is a huge deal, whether it's chocolate, natural or otherwise, chocolate powder, the desserts, the ice cream, but you can imagine. So that was a huge one. Gold, of course, still a big deal, was a big deal then. And of course, I would say that Nkrumah was one of the progenitors of a Ghana model of what we today is problematic to call it the PPP, where it's sort of public-private partnerships. But much of the projects and enterprises that Nkrumah founded were on that basis, with kind of like an understanding of, okay, let's come together. You've got the knowledge, the know-how. Let's work on this project together. We're going to try and Africanize it, have as many African youth learning how to do this alongside you, so forth, and then we can learn to do it for ourselves. Which is partly why they had to overthrow him. absolutely
You know, but all right, next question. What do you want the Ghanaian government to do to foster more business creation and further commerce in the agricultural industry? Interesting question. By the way, Gbontwi, some of these are subjects that we're going to get into in future podcasts. So feel free to just touch it and
so touch this one too. Same thing. You know what I would say for this one? Do what they said they're going to do. Like, how about that? Literally, I'm not even asking for miracles. Like, literally do what you say you're going to do, as far as create a healthy ecosystem for business. So we're not even talking about Nkrumah. None of you guys have got anything on Nkrumah. We are not expecting you guys to be able to pull anything in Nkrumah off in your wildest dreams. But just do what you say you're going to do. But we'll get into that in more specifics. Well, in specifics at a later time.
Giving thanks. You know what's funny about this one, because we could have gone into this as well in terms of industry or technology, but it's roads, and anyway, like, one of the things that you hear about Ghana the most is just the roads, right? Especially Accra. Just the roads, and this, to be fair, this is a situation that exists like wherever we are as Black people in the majority. You know, it's one of the biggest talking points in Jamaica as well. You know what I'm saying? In fact, when we did a show on the Grenada Revolution in October, and we watched a documentary about the situation in Grenada in the 1970s and 80s, and the sister was saying before the revolution, under the previous Prime Minister Eric Gary, said that there was not holes in the road, but road in the holes. That's how bad the roads were. Road in the holes, right? You know what I'm saying? But as I'm saying to say that when we was in Ghana, particularly Accra, there were because there were some elections going on, local elections going on at that time, and obviously the campaign season is ramping up, right? So people are campaigning, you know, the presidential candidates are campaigning as well. So it was a running joke whenever we got in a car and we got stopped, you know, because there was some roadworks taking place and so on and so forth. You know, said, oh, there's an election coming up, right? So they're fixing the road in anticipation of the election, and without fail, every driver laughed knowingly when this joke was run. Like a number of drivers all throughout the length and breadth of Accra, everybody knows that the roads are being fixed now because there's an election coming up, right? You know what I'm saying? So they got to put a good foot forward. It was amazing. And another show we'll get into those contracts maybe, and who gets them, because there are some roads that when I was in Sierra Leone, there are some roads that are being made by the Chinese, but then there are some roads that are you know, using indigenous kind of native labor, so to speak, and that kind of thing. So that's a whole next dynamic. Imhotep says nobody can replace Fela, which is true. I'm glad you're on the Fela train. You know what I'm saying? Imhotep. If you're not on the Fela train, get on the Fela train. He also says destalling rubbish, the idea of autocracy, or destalling. That's what I was supposed to say. Destalling rubbish is the idea of autocracy in these monarchical systems in Africa. The whole next thing, and you know me, like indigenous governance systems and the extent to which they can be applied today, for our development today, is something I'm entirely interested in. And I've seen and studied enough to know that there's a lot in our indigenous systems that we need to learn from in terms of how we govern ourselves in this time. And you're right that when we look at, and this is one of the critiques that I have of brothers and sisters who would lean Marxist in their analysis, is the superimposition of Eurocentric historical paradigms upon African ones, and not just African ones, indigenous American ones, and so on and so forth, without the nuance of whether when you say feudalism or monarchy in Africa, does it necessarily mean the same thing as it means in Europe? And them kind of things there. And not often enough do brothers and sisters take the time to make those distinctions, right? So for another key distinction is the fact that for the most part, in indigenous African systems of what you might call monarchy, monarchs didn't own land. You know what I'm saying? They weren't landlords, right? In the same way as they were in Britain and France and so on and so forth, right? So that creates a fundamentally different political economy. Do you know what I'm saying? And that is not to argue that everything that happened in these systems was fair and just. It just means that it's fundamentally different, and so we have to analyze it within its own context, right? So good point. And then he also says, "Fine, this is the final comment. A suggestion that every time we say the word mercenary, we clarify that this is a privately owned." Yep, you're correct. We have to make it clear that we're talking about privately owned and operated army every time. So we have to be clear about that. This is a gun for hire. Yes, these are people that are paid to kill people. By a private corporations. So this is not state-funded military or anything like that. A mercenary is works for a private organization, a private company, and as multinational organization. And again, Blackwater is one of the major ones operating on behalf of Western imperialism in that regard, and possibly an underrated element, and possibly an underrated aspect of the imperialist project are their mercenary machines. Understudied aspect of Western imperialist.
We too often just put it under the umbrella of America, and it needs study by itself. It needs study by itself.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So definitely need to look into that more specifically in a future session. All right, brothers and sisters. This has been Ghana Democracy Under Fire. I want to thank Gbontwi Anyetei for coming through for our first show. Want to thank the energies that govern the internet for allowing us to persevere and get through our initial technical hitches. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure there's an Orisha for the internet. You know what I'm saying?
There has to be. There must be.
There has to be. You know what I'm saying? So we need to consult the Odu to discover what's the name of the Orisha for internet. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, actually you're correct. Imhotep says Baba Ogun, but that's not actually completely unfounded in terms of if you know what Ogun represents.
It's about machines and machines and
technology, things, right? I'm saying so it could be, but it could also be Eshu, because Eshu is about communication. You know what I'm saying? And them kind of things there. So maybe there's a combination there that we need to identify. You know what I'm saying? The Orisha of the internet. But yes, giving thanks. And so once again, we'll be back on the fourth Tuesday of every month. So the next show will be coming to you on the 26th of March, brothers and sisters. The 26th of March. Myself and Gbontwi Anyetei will be back. Should we share with them what we're going to be dealing with, Gbontwi?
Why not?
All right, cool. You know what I'm saying? So the subject is going to be Ghana as the model neo-colony. Yes, Ghana as the model neo-colony. And then one of the subheadings there is churches are greater than factories. You know what I'm saying? That's a mad thing right there. That's one little thing that we're going to be dealing with. Yeah. So we're looking at Ghana as a model neo-colony, and we're going to have to look into what neo-colonialism is. Oh, do you know what, Bunchy? But before we go, one of the things that might be helpful for our introductory episode is to just give your assessment of the primary players in this election. I know it's a bit of a broad question to end with, but just looking at the just looking at the actual, so but the main players. So Bawumia and Mahama, yeah, as the main players. What are they saying? What's their campaign saying at the moment? Nothing too detailed, but what's the general overview, and who is prospected at this stage to win as far as the election is concerned?
The two major players, they sum up the futility of politics in Ghana right now. The NDC lead is somebody who's already been president.
Yes.
For 4 years plus 2 months of the deceased Atta Mills, who's placing still. And he did nothing with his presidency that inspires any kind of confidence or optimism.
Right.
And he's basically being grandfathered back in just because of how terrible a job the current dispensation have done. And but he's coming in with no pressure for a mandate to do anything meaningful for improving the likes the fortunes of Ghana and Ghanaians. But he, because of him coming in and being I guess de facto fresh face, just the alternative to who's in now, is likely to my take, is the favorite to win. The man who represents the current dispensation, who's now the new flag bearer, he's just got too many odds against him. His own inefficiency being the main weapon formed against himself. He's been the deputy, so he's the vice president. What of them do we use vice president? He's been the vice president for the last 8 years and has not impressed for one day of it. And he was selected in the first place as a kind of inobtrusive representation. There's a thing that happens in Ghana, which is, quite nice if you like sort of superficial gestures, which is to have the president or the vice president from the north and then one from the south. And so they wanted somebody inobtrusive from the north that wouldn't make any problems for the president for the last 8 years, and he was very
both of them are from the north. Has that happened before in Ghana history, that both candidates are from the north?
I do not believe so.
Right.
Before Muhammad, the only president we'd had from the north was the man who was president when I was born, actually. Hilla Liman. And I don't think he had anybody else from the north as a rival in the election. I stand to be corrected. But yeah, no, not that I know of is the answer to that for now.
All right, and continue.
And so he is, he's facing too much infighting. He's an unpopular candidate within his own party. I mentioned the splinter group, Alan Cheramanteng. He started his own party. He's unlikely to make a dent. There's some noise around him, sort of people going with him, but I don't think in the final analysis, or ultimately when people actually start casting their votes, that any will cast votes his way. But who knows? Might be surprised. Because Bawumia is quite unpopular within his own party. He's really coming from a reverse position, because yeah, people. He touted himself as a economic whiz kid, whilst criticizing the government, this man's government, who he's up against now. And actually, many of his tweets, if not all of his tweets, have come back to embarrass him. His own tweets, people have been reposting them, not even reposting them. You know, with Twitter, you comment on them and it returns to everybody's feed.
Right.
People have been returning, and it's very confusing. You'll see the post, and he's criticizing all the measures that the government of the time did. Things like introducing all kinds of silly taxes, restructures, all the things that he criticized the previous government for doing, he is now doing. So put up on Twitter, like, why is he criticizing? That's his own party. And then you look at the date of the tweet, and you realize, oh, they brought the tweet back from 2015 when NDC Muhammad were doing it. So it's funny and, as I said, futile at the same time. And same thing too, some cheeky person. I approve of the move. Like I said, I'm a big fan of violence. Somebody's actually been taking those same posts.
Yes.
Somebody's been taking those same posts and making whole posters, making whole full-size posters of those tweets with the date circled, so that people can see these posts. Because, you know, some of the criticisms, or some of the high-level criticism that the government gets, that both this government and the previous, is that it's all social media based. And so, you know, how do the common people who mostly listen to radio, how are they going to see those criticisms? So that's why this person take it up on themselves to take it to the you know, to big posters.
All right, cool. We'll get into those dynamics even more in future shows, brothers and sisters. So we look forward to that, and we hope ones have appreciated this introductory session. So we invite you to come and jam with us once again on the 26th of March for the next episode of Ghana Democracy Under Fire. And until such time, brothers and sisters, be well, and we shall see you then. Peace. Ghana, democracy under fire. Delving deep into the political theater of Ghana in the lead up to the general election in December 2024. We welcome activist, organizer, and writer Gbontwi Anyetei as our regular co-host and analyst, breaking down the dynamics in his unique and entertaining way. Tune into our very first show, Decoding Ghana's Political Theatre, Tuesday, the 27th of February, 2024, from 8 p.m. GMT, live on gotkushTV. And we look forward to you joining us every fourth Tuesday of the month throughout 2024. Ghana, democracy under fire. This is a show not to be missed.
I can't think about this democracy. 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 Crazy demo. Demonstration of praise. Crazy demonstration. If you not be praised, why for Africa? As time will go, things just stay bad more and more. Democracy, crazy demo, demonstration of praise, crazy demonstration, democracy, crazy demo, democracy, crazy demo. I can't think about this. shall